What is going on, everyone? This is Sarah coming at you from just outside of Hartford, Connecticut. And today we are going to be doing the AFC South Rant video in a continuation of our rant series, as we're going to discuss every team at some point or another in the NFL, MLB, and NHL. So this is, like I said, the AFC South, and the teams that we're going to be discussing today are the Houston Texans, Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, and lastly, the Tennessee Titans. So without further ado, let's jump right in and start with Houston Texans. So bullet point one here, Jadeveon Clowney. So a little bit of history on me to an extent for college football. I've never really talked college football with you all. I like a few different teams here and there. And my second favorite team is going to be the Michigan Wolverines. So I was watching the Outback Bowl where Clowney had his big hit on the running back from Michigan. He popped his helmet off, and everyone's like, oh my God, Jadeveon Clowney, blah, 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 blah. I just never saw the hype in Jadeveon Clowney. I thought the guy was overrated. I thought that everyone wanted him for that one play, and I was really sick of seeing that play over and over and over on all the sports networks and everything. And it was all over social media. I just got really sick of seeing it. So it just made me immediately dislike Clowney. And I eventually ended up liking him a little bit. But by the time he left Houston, I never really had any problems with him. When he went into Seattle, different story, but that's for another day. Texas, they're the little brothers of the Dallas Cowboys. There's a good amount of fans who probably like the Cowboys as their NFC team that are Houston Texans fans. So that's a huge knock to me. Obviously, I despise the Dallas Cowboys. I can't not despise the Cowboys. I'm an Eagles fan. But I despise the Cowboys. I want nothing to do with the Cowboys. So if you're in the same state as them, sorry guys, that's a knock on you. Bill O'Brien. Another knock on them was when they had Bill O'Brien as their coach. And Bill O'Brien obviously comes off the Bill Belichick coaching tree in the New England Patriots. So that's a huge knock on you. I despise the Patriots, as you guys know. You probably have seen my Patriots rant video, which was 30 minutes of me just ranting about the Patriots. And, if you have anything to do with the Patriots, I don't like you. And Bill O'Brien made all those horrible moves. Obviously, the one that will always be remembered is the DeAndre Hopkins trade, where he trades Hopkins for, a second-round pick, and David Johnson, an injury-prone running back nearing 30. Come on, man. Deshaun Watson. So Deshaun Watson's a guy who, they seem like they want to sabotage him. They keep taking everything away from him. But my point with Deshaun is I was sick of hearing people comparing him to Carson Wentz because they both were coming off torn ACLs in 2017. But all said and done, I have no real problems with Watson other than that. J.J. Watt. I love J.J. Watt as a player, okay? I love J.J. Watt as a player. But I mention him here because the Texans have done absolutely nothing to help J.J. Watt succeed. They've had some great names on their team in history. Obviously, they had D'Amico Ryans, they had Brian Cushing, they've had J.J. Watt, and that's on defense. So they've had some big names in the linebacker and in their front seven, but they've never been able to put it together. They've never had a good defense with a good offense. It's always been one or the other. So, yeah, you're wasting J.J. Watt's career. You've essentially wasted his prime, unfortunately. Indianapolis Colts, stealing Frank Reich. This is more of a knock on the Patriots, Josh McDaniels, for being a baby, agreeing to a deal, and then wussing out of a deal. It's just, come on, man. That's being a... I can't say the words I want to say, but it just really upset me when he did that. And then they took Frank Reich, which I'm happy because Frank Reich looks like a very good coach, but it really's hurting the Eagles. I mean, I'm just curious. If Frank Reich was the Eagles' offensive coordinator in 2018, could they have won a Super Bowl? I mean, it's definitely possible. Not saying it would have happened, but I'm happy to see Reich succeed, and I like him as a guy. But it's interesting. Wasting Andrew Luck's career. Indianapolis just completely wasted Andrew Luck's career. Luck was this amazing quarterback, can't miss prospect, and the Colts just did nothing with him. They had one good season with Andrew Luck. And of course, that was when they lost via Deflategate, which I've discussed before in a previous video. And Luck just took so many hits. He took all these injuries. Luck looked like a Hall of Famer. He did look like a Hall of Famer at some point. But unfortunately, nothing came out of it. and Luck retired before 2019. So now you have Phillip Rivers as your quarterback. Hope you guys deserve that. I mean, the Colts, good job. I mean, you essentially have had 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in the 21st century. With Manning, then you had Luck, who should have been a Hall of Famer, but you wasted his career. Now you have Rivers, who borderline Hall of Fame. But I digress on that one. Last point, Peyton Manning. I've never had a problem with Manning personally, but I know he has a massive ego. I think if I was an AFC fan, I'd have more of a problem with Peyton Manning. But since I'm an NFC fan, I don't really have a problem with Peyton. And you're hard-pressed to find a good quarterback who's a nice guy, who doesn't have an ego. I mean, that's what Andrew Luck was, and look where he is now. Jacksonville Jaguars. 2017 AFC Championship game management. So, full disclosure, I didn't get to watch most of this game. I had to work, and my choices were work during the AFC Championship game or work during the NFC. And of course, Eagles were playing the NFC, so I was not going to work during the Eagles game. So I had to work during this game until the very end. And I remember my dad was telling me about how it was going. And the Jaguars, every time it was 1st and 10, would just hand the ball to Leonard Fournette and run down the middle. They should have won that game against the Patriots. They should have won their first AFC title. They should have gone to the Super Bowl. But instead, they were morons, and they just kept running the same plays over and over and over and over. Leonard Fournette was a great running back at that point in time. I get that. But if you run, an HB draw every single 1st and 10, where's the surprise? They cost themselves that. So good job, Jacksonville. You screwed yourselves. London. I've mentioned before with Buffalo, I hate when NFL teams play outside of the United States. And I hate it when they go to London in particular. And it's just so annoying. Because I remember in 2018, I had to watch the Eagles play at like 9 in the morning. Or 10 in the morning. I'm just like, come on, this is ridiculous. It was such an ugly, sloppy game by both teams because they're not used to it. It wasn't, I hate the London games. They're always sloppy. They're always boring because it's always garbage. And it's always the Jaguars because they're the ones who are considering moving to London at some point or another. So you're playing your fan base. You're trying to get your fans to start going to more games. So we're saying, we're going to move to London, but we're going to take away one of the home games. So if you buy season tickets, guess what? You only get 7 games. Tom Coughlin, we'll discuss him real quick. Of course, Coughlin was the coach of the New York Giants when they won their Super Bowls 2007, 2011. Then they hired him. I never really had a problem with Coughlin until he went to Jacksonville and all the news came out about how he was treating the players in Jacksonville. He's got a very old school method. He would have been a good coach in the 70s, but in the 2010s, late 2010s in particular, it didn't work out. And yes, he wasn't the head coach. I forget exactly what his title was, but he just was not a good fit for the Jaguars. Blake Bortles. I watched when Central Florida pulled the upset over Baylor. I forget what bowl it was. I think it was the Fiesta Bowl. I could be wrong on that. And again, I'm a American football. What do they call it? Whatever, American Athletic Conference fan. Obviously, we'll get to that in a second, but I was rooting for UCF that year. That was their first year as a conference, so it would be 2013. And Blake Bortles won me over. Goes to Jacksonville. I'm very hyped for him. And he does nothing in Jacksonville because Jacksonville just stinks. And then they cut him, and it just hurt. Speaking of quarterbacks going there and getting hurt, Nick Foles. They signed Foles to a massive 4-year, $88, I believe it was, $1 million deal. And after 1 year, they give up on him and send him to Chicago. And they ride the Gardner Minshew train. I mean, it just really hurt to see Foles get hurt yet again, screwed over yet again outside of Philadelphia. So that's a huge knock on Jacksonville. Tennessee Titans, our last team. Mariota. I have no real problem with Marcus Mariota, but it didn't make sense to me why everyone was so hyped up on Mariota and Winston. I never liked either of them coming out of college. And all the hype was the Eagles were going to trade for Mariota, so that's why I have Mariota on this list. I don't want to go into detail on it, but Mariota just failed to live up to his expectations, probably because of Tennessee. Corey Davis, speaking of failed expectations on first-round picks, Corey Davis, they trade up to select the guy, or if they didn't trade up to select him, they reached for him. I just remember they grabbed him pretty early, top 10, and he's done nothing for them because he can't get healthy, and he never really had a quarterback to help him out. So, yeah. Oilers. I hate expansion. I hate when teams relocate for dumb reasons, and they relocated from Houston for dumb reasons, stadium problems. So, of course, as a Whalers fan, seeing stadium problems hits me. So, yeah, stadium disagreements, and of course, the whole fact that they abandoned the city. They had a lease to play through the 97 season, I believe it was, and they left after the 96 season, which again is similar to what happened with the Whalers around the exact same time frame as well. So it hits me home. It hits home when that happens. It really does, and I don't like it. So this is not a knock on the Titans. It's a knock on the former ownership of this team. Lastly, Memphis. So Memphis is my favorite college football team. I'm not a UConn fan. I don't like UConn football. I think they're a bunch of babies. I do like their basketball program, but I don't like their football program. So Memphis is a good team, and by contrast, I'm a little bit of a fan of their city, and of course the sports teams. So remember how I said the Oilers left a year before their contract was up in Houston? So 97 they played in Memphis, and they got all pissed off because no fans went to the game. Why would fans go to a game when they know you're only spending 8 games there and then you're leaving? Memphis deserves an NFL team. They have deserved an NFL team. So I again feel connected to Memphis by that. And just like Hartford deserves an NHL team. And it goes to show you. Screw the Titans organization for what they did to Memphis and Houston. But at least Houston got a team. Now, as always, we have our one good thing to say about each team. Houston Texans. I'm a big fan of J.J. Watt and D'Amico Ryans, and thank you for letting Brandon Brooks walk to Philadelphia. Indianapolis Colts. You guys have always kind of been our AFC trading partners as an Eagles fan. We always seem to trade with them, and they have a lot of our former executives. We have a lot of their former executives and players. It's just, there's huge connections between the Eagles and all 4 of these teams. Jacksonville Jaguars. At one point, they were kind of my AFC team because everyone was dumping on them for being so bad. But I've moved on from them. And, they've had some interesting players. Tennessee Titans. I always liked Steve McNair as a player. So by contrast, with that, I've always somewhat liked Tennessee. But that was our rant video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Have a good rest of your day.